Hey y'all, it's Dr. Know-It-All coming to you from Las Vegas once again. I wanted to do a quick episode on this. This just popped up a few hours ago overnight as I was sleeping, and a couple of minutes ago a repost by Elon Musk, so I think it's worth talking about because airports are actually a really big deal for autonomous ride-hailing services like Waymo, like RoboTaxi, and like Zoox, which we just did a ride on here in Las Vegas. If you haven't seen that video, I will leave a link up here, and also at the end of this video. I highly recommend it. Really interesting. I like how Zoox has done things. They're thinking about this differently. But anyway, today I want to talk specifically about RoboTaxi and versus Waymo because those are the two major players here. So anyway, you can see last night Tesla AI posted our Bay Area ride-hailing service now goes to San Jose Airport, or SJC, and of course that's brand new. And then Elon Musk reposted that just a few minutes ago. You can now have a self-driving Tesla take you to the San Jose Airport. So that's in the South Bay Area. San Francisco's kind of up here and San Jose is down at the bottom. If you're going to Silicon Valley to visit Google or NVIDIA or whoever, right? Many people, Apple, etc., etc. Anyway, that's that area. San Jose serves that area. It's a fairly busy airport, but clearly not as big as San Francisco Airport. But San Francisco is also in the cards here as well. So I posted underneath this. This is big news. Airports are my biggest need case for any taxi, and Tesla being able to do this is a huge deal. Here's to many more to come soon. And then a really cool picture here from Nick Cruz, who posted, I actually was here recently. I didn't see this because they didn't have the autonomous vehicle rideshare there yet, but I remember this exact spot from the San Jose Airport. But anyway, San Jose Airport autonomous vehicle rideshare pickup and drop-off point. Welcome to the future. So they now have a specific spot for autonomous vehicle rideshare, which I think is a big deal because this is very complicated. So I'm going to talk about that more in just a second. But first of all, from a consumer point of view, why does this matter so much? Well, obviously, one of the biggest use cases for any type of ride-hailing service or taxi or whatever is to visit another city. As it so happens, I'm in Las Vegas right now, and obviously we took that Zoox ride, but we've also taken a ton of Uber rides and some taxi rides and things like that to get around the city. That's when you need it the most because you don't have your vehicle, you have flown in. So your choices are either rent a car or take a taxi or Uber or other ride-hailing service around the city where you're going. And obviously if you fly in, you're coming into the airport, and so if you can't get picked up at the airport, that's a significant problem. That actually happened when I went to Austin to test out the Tesla RoboTaxi on June 22nd as I flew in, and I had to take an Uber to get into the service area to then take a RoboTaxi around. So basically, if you're traveling at all, you need the service to go to an airport, but airports are also very complicated. Okay, so let's take a look at the lie of the land. This is the best research I've got between Google and Grok, and I'm hoping it's actually accurate. Obviously, things change almost daily, so let's take a look at what Grok has to say first. So as you see here, Tesla RoboTaxi on the 27th of October, which is today, has just started that, and they are seeking San Francisco and Oakland permits as well. I don't know when those will be made available, but it's obvious they're trying to get into these other airports. Waymo, and this says currently has fully autonomous rides at San Jose Airport and San Francisco Airport. I don't believe that's true. And Phoenix Sky Harbor, which I do believe is true at this point. Manual testing at Newark, New Jersey, interesting. And then plans for the Denver Airport and London as well in 2026. And then of course Zoox, even though it serves Las Vegas, does not go to the airport at this point, so it does not have airport service. And then checking with Google, you can see San Jose Airports, Waymo has received approval to operate at San Jose and plans to launch a commercial service later this year. So there we go. And then San Francisco, they've also received approval and is beginning the process of testing for those two airports. So I went back and I asked Grok about this, are you sure and everything? And so it gave me more detail, which I think is more correct at this point. So you can see in San Jose, they've been authorized for fully autonomous testing starting on September 4th, and commercial rides are planned for later in 2025. So as far as I understand it, Waymo does not actually provide rides at this point in San Jose. And then San Francisco on the 16th, they were granted a permit for testing, and employee testing will start soon. So probably public rides not until 2026. And then Sky Harbor Airport in Phoenix has been available for a period of time. Okay, so as far as I understand it, that is the lie of the land between Waymo and Tesla's RoboTaxi services. Waymo has service into Sky Harbor, and as of today, apparently RoboTaxis are available at San Jose Airport. That'll be a really big deal. If you're in the San Jose area or you're flying into it, try to take a RoboTaxi ride and let me know in the comments. I would totally love to know whether you actually got that to work or not. Okay, so that's the lie of the land, and that's why this is a big deal, right? It's important for people who are visiting cities to be able to take a RoboTaxi from the airport to wherever they're going in the city. That makes complete sense. Now, why is this so difficult? You may be like, oh, what's the big deal? Just open up these ride-hailing services. If they can drive on streets, they can drive in airports. But airports are significantly more complicated. There are a couple of reasons why. Number one is that the dynamics of an airport are constantly shifting. So if you think about like the Atlanta airport, which is our home airport, and I don't expect to see a RoboTaxi service there for quite a while. But anyway, you have traffic from multiple highways and surface streets and things like that compressing into one area, right, into the pickup and drop off area of the airport, and you have tons and tons of cars that are jockeying for position. Cars are trying to pull over to drop people off. They're trying to pull over and wait for a few seconds while somebody's coming out with their suitcases. They're getting chased on by police constantly going like, keep moving, things like that. So it's a big congested mess, and a bigger deal for these on the rail services like Zoox and Waymo, which means that you have to have LiDAR, everything has to be mapped out, and it has to be very, very consistent, is that this flow is constantly changing. There's cars moving around all over the place. They're parked, they're double parked, they're triple parked, there's people getting in and out, there's pedestrians everywhere. So it's a very, very complicated dynamic flow. That's what's going on in these areas, which makes it really complicated for these services to deal with. The RoboTaxi has a huge advantage in this, in that it's just working with vision. So it's looking around and seeing what's going on, and it's like, oh, there's people there, there's a car there. Now, I'm not saying this is easy by any means, because it still has to figure out how to negotiate its way across 3 lanes of traffic and get over to a place where it can drop off somebody or pick them up. Now, of course, the Atlanta airport is exceptionally complicated, and it looks like the San Jose airport actually has created spots specifically for autonomous vehicle and rideshare. And it's a smaller airport, so this is significantly easier. When we see them come to San Francisco airport, which is a more complicated, big airport, that will be a bigger unlock, and especially if we see it in a place like Las Vegas, where what they have is they just have a whole parking garage deck. There's a whole level of a parking garage where they just have things like A, B, C, D, E, right? They have like all of these columns, and then 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. So your car pulls up and it might be in D7 or something like that. That might be the slot. And then the person in the Uber or the taxi like texts you and says like, I'm in this spot, and you walk to it. So that's the way that works in Las Vegas and in several other airports as well. That creates a situation where the car has to be able to know where it is, right? If you're doing this autonomously, how does the car communicate with you where it is? First of all, it needs to be able to figure out how to find an empty slot, which could be fairly complicated in its own right. Then it has to be able to communicate that to you as a user. All of that stuff is really complex, and of course it also has to be able to get into the parking garage, and that doesn't have fantastic GPS because of course it's blocked by the parking garage itself. It has to be able to get out of the parking garage, which is probably not as complicated, but this is a complex situation. You can see here at San Jose, this is in the open. I remember that was the case. I just kind of was there, and there was like these 5, 6, 7, but even here it has to know that it's either at 7 or 8 or 9 or whatever the spots are for autonomous vehicle ride sharing. It has to know where it is, and it has to be able to communicate that with the user and say like, hey, I am here. So this is a very complex situation. You're not talking about having to drive quickly or anything, right? You're usually in very, very dense traffic. So the situation is that you're actually driving very, very slowly, and that part works in the favor of these vehicles. But the downside is that you've got all of this traffic congestion. You've got dynamic flow in terms of pedestrians and cars and things. So things are constantly changing, which is really bad for vehicles that are riding on the rails. Again, we watched the Zoox thing. The Zoox vehicle itself was doing great, but we also saw a car with a human in it with LiDAR and all sorts of things. It was like a Toyota something or other, but it was driving around constantly remapping the area to make sure that everything was still good, that the car could drive around. That's something these companies just are not going to be able to do at an airport because it's changing moment to moment, not hour to hour. So it's very, very quick. And again, San Jose is a relatively easy airport to get in and out of. It doesn't have these really, really complex situations. It's been a long time since I've actually driven out of Sky Harbor, but I believe that in Phoenix, that one is a relatively straightforward pick up and drop off as well. But when you start getting into like Atlanta Airport, Los Angeles Airport, San Francisco Airport, all of those kinds of airports that are much more complicated, have parking deck structures and things like that, that's going to make it really complicated for any autonomous vehicle platform, obviously, but especially ones that ride on the rails and ones that depend on GPS very, very heavily, very, very high definition mapping and things like that. That's going to create a significant issue for them. So San Jose is a great unlock, and I'm really, really happy to see this happening. And of course, I hope it's just the first of many for Tesla, and also that we see Waymo able to unlock the San Jose airport as well. But there are many more complicated airports, and we'll see how quickly these companies are able to scale into these other areas. And of course, all of us that fly in and out of Austin would like that to happen as well. That's a slightly more complicated airport. I would consider that kind of a medium one. I think San Jose is a relatively easy airport. Sky Harbor, as far as I remember, although it's been a long time, is a relatively easy airport. Austin's kind of a medium airport. Then you get to things like Atlanta and Las Vegas and Los Angeles, and those are much more complicated airports. Although Los Angeles has gotten significantly easier since they moved the ride-hailing out of the airport itself, so that's made life a lot easier. So I could see the LA airport coming relatively more quickly because there's a very specific spot for ride-hailing, and if they establish one just like this in San Jose that's specifically for autonomous vehicles, then I could see them expand into that area more quickly. But anyway, the upshot of this is that airports are kind of a boss level for human drivers as well, right? For if you have to go to an airport that you're not familiar with and drop off somebody or pick up somebody, it's complicated. You have to do a lot of negotiating in terms of how to drive around there. Again, the advantage is that you're going very, very slowly, so that allows the car to think more and have level 2 reasoning, but it has to have that built in, and I talked about that just yesterday, and I will leave a link to that at the end of this video as well. But Ashok Eluswamy talked about how Teslas, their autonomous vehicles, full self-driving, etc., are able to engage system 2 thinking or more rational thinking at a slower pace, which will allow them to deal with airports much more easily than these services that are much more mechanical and heuristics based. So my prediction is that just like we're seeing Tesla expand geographically very, very rapidly, we will see Tesla's RoboTaxi service expand into airports more quickly than any of these other services as well. Will that prediction come true or not? We'll have to stay tuned and see how it works, but that is my prediction. Alrighty, folks, that's what I've got for you today. Let me know in the comments what you think about all of this while you're down there. If you don't mind liking the video, it really helps out YouTube's algorithm. And of course, consider subscribing for more of this kind of content, and I will see you in the next video. Bye-bye.